Hi guys, Hatchcomic again, so I hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. The CDL finally returns this evening. The minor is on this weekend during the course of the Major 1 qualifiers, and Shotzzy is at it again last night. A couple of interesting scrim sets that OpTic played, dominating both of the teams that they did match up against, mostly against another pro team in the Los Angeles Grillers, Gentlemade. Shotzzy roasting them hard during the series, same for Kenny as well, and coming after the fact out to the timeline to absolutely crash out on some of these players as to how terribly they are playing fundamental Call of Duty. What's got into Shotzzy lately? Has Pred had anything to do with this? Because he's in the replies as well. And how is it going to translate to OpTic's performance this evening and for the rest of the weekend? Throw much into your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I greatly appreciate it. First, he thought this is kind of funny. Here goes Dashy and I back home. Of course, the snow out there in Texas. And it always seems to happen this time of year. A couple of years ago, guys might remember we had to do that super week because they couldn't play the matches because everyone's apartment was having a nightmare. They had to postpone them. And, well, obviously, you guys probably remember that story from a couple of years ago. This is funny though, because Dashy obviously flexing the crib a little bit, but also saying, am I back home? And TJ was getting roasted by Shotzzy, as we saw yesterday, because he's been in the league for many years and didn't have a house. I don't think Shotzzy called out TJ specifically, but TJ saw discussion on the home, and obviously he thought that was kind of entertaining. But yeah, man, Shotzzy has been going hard the last few days, and we're going to see more examples of just that in a few minutes' time. OpTic Halo, Formal's Halo team has been locked in officially for the new season. This, according to Formal himself, was the only team that would have kept him playing. He said a while ago he was going to be done, right? He was going to call it a day, retire again from Halo, as he did from Call of Duty a few years ago. But Formal decided, okay, if he can get the roster that he wants, then he will make it happen, and he pulled all the strings behind the scenes to make this one happen. It's kind of remarkable how Formal's managed to do it again. After what OpTic did last year, the Halo team was very good, but frankly not good enough. Formal had the keys, dropped the rest of his team, and effectively managed to break up the Space Station gaming roster that actually did win the World Championship. So, look, on paper this team is mesmerizingly good, and they finally confirmed it. Octane's like explaining COD terms, and, you know, on some level it's kind of like, I don't know, putting the tiny terrors with like Formal and Scump or Formal and Dashy or something, but, you know, who knows? It might turn out to be like Scump, Crimsix, Octane and Method. So, you know, it's always a possibility. You never really know how these super teams are actually going to get on, but of course on paper it's pretty godlike. And Formal literally said, if this specific roster of 4, if they couldn't form it, if he couldn't, you know, pull the strings and make things happen, I imagine that some of the budget cuts that are happening for the COD Pro team, and of course the OpTic Pro team in COD, potentially are due to the fact that there were buyouts involved to make this work. At least there's been some speculation to that end. But it may work out for OpTic. This is, you know, their chance to get back to the top. Formal won the World Championship in Halo a couple of years ago, has had a rough time in the Halo World Championships now for the last couple of years, with a couple of second places. This upcoming year is the year to get back to the top. Big update though from yesterday. I did share this in the pinned comment of last night's video, because this happened just after I'd finished recording it pretty much. But yeah, MS Dossery, so he is chairman of the Falcons. I think used to be a top quality FIFA player back in the day as well. And he made the following tweet that got 13,000 likes, 2 million views on this. It was actually a really big story in esports yesterday in general, just because of the context behind it. OpTic, of course, deciding not to feature a challengers bracket. You know, to some extent they were doing it out of spite for the CDL, but I don't necessarily blame them given the state of things. And whatever you think about OpTic's decision to do this, whether they could have said, okay, we'll increase the ticket prices and, you know, find a way to subsidize it ourselves, I think OpTic were trying to make a bit of a statement really by doing this, because fundamentally they're obviously sticking it to the league. We know that Hex doesn't necessarily have too many friends at the CDL, but also I think showing the community and the league itself that this product is not going to work unless the league steps in to do something about it. Well, it may work if the Saudis, you know, step in to do something about it, because the Falcons are basically saying, if the league is fine with it and OpTic is willing to operate it, we at the Falcons are ready to help the challengers community and take care of all the operational costs to make this happen. The reality is that whatever you think about the Falcons and, you know, the fact that they're coming into esports in the way that they are, and obviously, you know, Saudi Arabian involvement in sports in general over the last few years, this is going to be a massive deal for challengers and the community at large. As Luty says, challenger systems an important part of our projects, something which I'm passionate and supportive around, and the Falcons are basically going to fund this at an event that isn't even theirs. But I think the point still stands. As I said yesterday, it's like, you know, how are we going to resolve this issue? Is effectively going to be the Saudis solving the problem because they're going to be the only ones to put the money in? Or do the CDL seriously need to consider this type of stuff? I mean, this is why challenges is so important. And JP, I've made this point now for a good few weeks, but I think JP says it rather eloquently. Why would any up-and-coming player try and become a Call of Duty pro? Ranked doesn't work. Challenges doesn't exist. Hackers are ruining the game. Like, you know, where are we trying to develop players? It doesn't really exist. Obviously, Ghosty's talking about it as well in the replies, how every other esports has at least a functional ranked system, a functional tier 2 pipeline in some regards, but obviously in COD it doesn't exist. So, sure, Falcons can subsidize this event, and great that they're, I think, doing so if OpTic and the league and everything can come to an agreement on it. But it doesn't solve the fundamental long-term problem that OpTic, I think, are exposing on some level by not supporting challengers on this occasion. So, yeah, and tweet your thoughts on that in the comment section below. But let's move on to some of the scrims from last night, because this is where the drama very much so got underway with Shotzzy involved, and OpTic played the Omit team. Now, of course, Omit on paper, not exactly the best team in the world, but they have been playing FaZe in quite a few scrims lately. We've seen them play Falcons, we've seen them play FaZe, and against FaZe, they've had pretty good results. They've been winning most of their maps against FaZe, at least splitting them as we have seen. But on paper, top challengers team Omit against top pro team OpTic, it should be one-way traffic, and it was. The Vault was won by Omit on the first map, pretty impressive from them, but after that it was, you know, going back the other way for sure. OpTic won the Skyline 250 to 160, great map here from Kenny. I will say for Kenny's sake, during the course of the day, it's not like he's been at full form yet. Kenny will get there, but he was pulling out on some maps a third SMG, and that did seem to be working rather well for him. So I think that's an interesting something to keep an eye on anyway. If the meta stays as it is, I think we will see over time more Jackals start to be used, and Kenny in that flex role, it seemed like he was having some pretty good maps when he was using the third Jackal, so something to have a look for. Protocol was 250, 141 in favour of OpTic as well, so pretty comfortable. JP was covering who was who here, but, you know, you can probably guess based on some of the numbers. And then the Hacienda, I don't know, somebody lagged out, and it ended when it was 196 to 120, so there wasn't an official winner, but OpTic, you know, likely would have won this map, and they don't really tend to lose too many Haciendas as it stands. The red card as well, I'm not exactly sure what happens here, because it's very rare a map in Hardpoint will end with this, you know, little score. But I think, you know, the total game time went to the limit, so I think this did just go to time. 176 to 173, very rarely seen actually. And yeah, Dashy 37 in 28 on this one. So they won the red card. Now I think was it Dashy who said, I don't know, it was Shotzzy, said something quite interesting on the Game Chat episode that OpTic did a couple of days ago now, and they mentioned how on their red card, they used to be very good at it, and then they've kind of not been so good at it lately, and Shotzzy reckons that they kind of took it a bit less serious. He had some ideas himself on what they could do to improve that, and over the last few days, they've looked better at red card. So I think it's kind of scary for the opposition going into playing OpTic this weekend, because, you know, yes, the opposition will have looked at their scrims over the last few days, seen how they've done on certain maps to get an idea of what they might ban, what they might keep into the series if they have a veto. But at the end of the day, especially with what we're going to see against Gorillas, they look pretty good at everything. So it's not at all clear what you veto or whatever when you play OpTic. You might want to veto Hacienda out of the series, but then you've got to play them on other maps that they are very good at as well. They won the Vault Hardpoint, and then they won the Skyline Hardpoint again. So they played basically a couple of sets of hardpoints here, and OpTic eventually took the W in a 6-1 fashion. So pretty much what you would expect, I would say, with OpTic playing a team like Omit, but still, compared to when FaZe played Omit, it's obviously been a bit of a different story. This is funny though. I mean, here comes Shotzzy. I don't know what's gone into Shotzzy lately. I guess he's just fed up of playing against, well, obviously he's annoyed with the pros for not allowing them to stream all their practice. Some of the teams will, but I think Shotzzy is kind of fed up of holding in lots of his thoughts and feelings, and now he's just, you know, jetting them all out there. So as he says, everyone's terrible. What are these guys doing? And then they were one map into scrimming LAG, and he said the following, and then he's got some further comments to say on this as well. So then they played Gentlemates, a team that are 0-4 in the league right now. They've not won any series. They've looked probably better than they maybe, like, you know, the 0-4 suggest, I would argue, right? Like, they've looked okay in some of the series that they've played. They've been reasonably competitive, but they're still losing. And it's basically the same roster as last year's subliners, but with Lynz, but for HyDra. And, you know, with all due respect, Lynz isn't HyDra. And the problem is that maybe that team was used to HyDra dropping 30, 40 kills and bailing them out of situations. And last year, OpTic, Kenny especially, Shotzzy, they were not a big fan of the way that subliners last year played the game. They said it multiple times how their practice against that team was not good because they literally felt like they weren't playing to win hardpoints. The way that they approached hardpoints, they just didn't think was the correct way to do it. And we're seeing that happen again. So there's got to be something about their approach that isn't working. And the coaching staff over at Gentlemates have got to think about it for sure, because it's the same thing again. And OpTic are smoking them in scrims again and clowning them on the timeline again for the way that they're approaching the game. 250-148 on the Vault, 250-190 on the Skyline, 250-214 in the end on the Hacienda, and then 250-114 on the red card. Huke goes 44 in 22. They nearly 100-point club them on this map this time, a map that OpTic aren't meant to be very good at, as we've seen over the last few days, but Shotzzy says, actually, no, we are good. We just needed to figure out a couple of problems. But, I mean, look at this from Huke, 44 in 22 with 2 minutes in the hardpoint. Dashy had nothing to do, and I'm sure he was absolutely loving life. They then played a few more maps. They won the Protocol as well. They won the Vault. I mean, I guess I brought up every other score, but I might as well bring up these ones as well. They won the Vault control, they won the Protocol control, and then they did lose the final map of the day. They played on the Hacienda control, but, you know, I think at that point, I know that it's not Dashy's favourite map. It's probably one they might be looking to veto when they actually play, but, yeah, they won the Vault, they won the Protocol, and then they did lose the Hacienda 3-0. I don't know, somebody quit, somebody lagged out, whatever. At that point, I'm sure they were pretty done with the series. I imagine OpTic won the first 6 maps, and they said, these guys are terrible. What are we even doing here? Even this, for example, here we are on the Skyline, and Shotzzy is up, you know, this is the second map that they played. He gets the first kill onto Kismet, gets the second kill. Look what he tries to do to the third guy, Skyz, off the top rope. Like, they were taking the mick out of these guys. Kenny was even in the chat. Here we go. They were playing the scrim. They're up 3-0 at this point. And, you know, Kenny says, go to the hill. Like, you know, do you guys want to actually play the game to try and win? So, absolute scenes. And then Shotzzy said this on the timeline this morning, 10 a.m. my time, so what, 4 a.m. out in Texas. At these terrible teams, you've got to play for the win if you want to win. So, just sensational tweet here from Shotzzy. I mean, who else is he talking about? Sure, maybe he's talking about Omits to some degree, but they're a Challengers team. He's got to be talking about LAG, and the fact that they're basically last year's subliners. He wasn't a big fan of the way they played COD last year. Seemingly not a big fan of the way they're playing COD this year so far. Pred was in the replies as well, thinking this was kind of funny. And, yeah, I don't know what's got into Shotzzy. It's great to see. I mean, I think Shotzzy's a brilliant personality. And the fact that he is coming out and speaking his mind a little bit more, I think is great for everybody involved. Is he wrong? No. And I think the other teams have a fair bit to think about when Shotzzy's calling them out in this manner. This is really funny as well. So this, I don't know, fan or whatever, quote tweets him and says, this guy's going to get cooked now if OpTic lose. Shotzzy, Huke is your duo, remember that? And then he says, yeah, he's my duo. We won the World Championship together, cloud emoji. Online Huke is the greatest ever. Wait until LAN. Wish I was wrong. And he says, yeah, I think this weird glitch where I got paid 300 grand. So, you know, just clouding on this guy. I mean, look, we'll see what happens when we get to LAN. Tonight, however, is the start of the minor. This is online. The results are as follows. Just to clarify, the results of this tournament this weekend do not count for the seeding for Major 1. They count for World Championship qualification, and they count for the overall CDL standings. They don't count for the seeding of Major 1. Whether that's good or bad, that's a matter for debate. $20,000 though to the winner. Single elimination bracket. This is what Grok AI cooked up in terms of a prediction. It's got Thieves winning over OpTic in the grand finals. I'm not sure I'm convinced so much by some of these bracket play results, but let's be honest, this is a single elimination online tournament. Basically anything can happen here within reason. But the first rounds of today are as follows. So these 4 games are all happening this evening. Surge play Cloud9, OpTic play the Falcons. You know, should be an OpTic dub. That's the one that I'm most confident in of all all of these results because I genuinely think anywhere else, anything can happen. Rocket Gentlemates, anything could happen there. Even FaZe Heretics. I wouldn't be, 100% confident FaZe are going to win that series. I think Heretics have at least a 30 to 35% chance of taking an upset there. OpTic will beat Falcons 99% chance. And then Cloud9 Surge could go either way. I'm going to lean Cloud9 55%, but I think it's going to be a tight one. So, yeah, very much interested in your thoughts in the comment section below. We'll be live on the Breaking Point channel for a pre-show later today as well. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care. And I'll see you next time.